What is up guys, Andy Forestine Runner here, back with another video for you today, and today we're going to be diving straight into the recap of the Newport Half Marathon. But just before we do, I want to say a massive thank you to each and every one of you across all social media platforms for sending me congratulations messages, support, whatever it is. You guys are incredible. It still blows my mind that there's so many of you that follow my journey, and I cannot thank you enough. I appreciate it, and it's just spurring me on to achieve those end goals, ultimately the road to sub 255. But this weekend was a great starting point, a great stepping stone in the right direction. I want to talk about the race itself. I want to isolate the race itself today because I could talk about so many other things. But let's talk about the race, how I felt it went, and my thoughts, my overall thoughts leading into the Gloucester 20-mile race that we have in 2 weeks' time. So without further ado, let's dive in. Okay, so we started the day, obviously off the end of a recovery week. We'd clocked 52, 55 and 59 miles 3 weeks before, and the opportunity presented itself on the Wednesday as the last day to enter really the Newport Half Marathon. And I thought to myself, with not being able to run the big half, and actually this one being only the beginning of March, we still had 9 weeks to go until the main event. It might be a good time to try out a half marathon because it means we can get this done, get Gloucester 20 done, and then still have 7 weeks of really good training and the taper to get really marathon specific, which actually we're starting to do this week and next week as well. So, started the day off, as you saw, it was rather rainy. The forecast was bad. We were meant to have Storm Freya that day, and we did, but luckily the winds held off until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which was great because I can deal with the rain. The rain's fine. I've run now 2 of my best races in the rain, Severn Bridge and this one. The rain does not bother me, it's the wind. And approaching this race, myself and Lee and Corey had kind of set our sights on just doing as well as we can. My goal was to run fast, run strong, and enjoy it. Too many races last year that I went out way too hard, way too fast, bad pacing, and ruined my race and didn't enjoy it towards the end. On Sunday, I just wanted that feeling of finishing strong, running hard, running similar mile splits to what I was at the start, and knowing that I can run a race from start to finish in a decent time. Ultimately, if that meant sub 120, we would go for it, and that was the ultimate goal. It didn't quite pay off, however, our official results came in. I got 120 and 40 seconds, which is an 8-second PB, and Lee got 120.38. Don't know, his is a few seconds PB as well. And Corey, I think he was 119.45. So he did break 80 minutes, which is incredible. And I would like to extend my congratulations to him as well as Lee. We all did fantastic, and all of the other Forest Dean Athletic Club members. Everyone went out there in bad conditions and did really, really well. So really proud to be part of the Green Army on that day. Leading into the race, we stood on the start line. We were actually stood quite a way back, unintentionally, but it was a good thing because it made us pace ourselves a little bit better. Just a bit of ducking and weaving for the first half a mile. Nothing major, but it just meant that we didn't bolt out of the blocks going too crazy. First mile went through, I think it was around a 6:03-ish, 6:02, 6:03, 6:04, something like that. And obviously to run a sub 120, you need to be running sub 6:06 pace. So that was great. Also, another flat mile straight after that, 6:01, 6:02, something like that. And I said to Lee at the time, because Corey was a few steps in front, I said to him, I'm not sure how I feel about this pace. You get that feeling at the beginning of the race, and you're going to settle in, because I take a while to settle. I take maybe 2 or 3 miles to settle into a pace and then hold it. But because I hadn't run a half marathon since like September, I felt a little bit concerned that I was going too fast. I wasn't sure, like my breathing was good. I could talk, but it was obviously hard. And at the top end of what I've been running my mile splits at on the industrial estate. So I thought to myself, is this too hard? I'm not sure. Either way, I said to him, he said, I don't know, I'm a bit the same. But I said, well, I guess the only way to find out is to push on and see if we can hold it. End of the day, I felt okay and I was smiling, and that for me was the main goal. So we cracked on. Mile 3 happened, another flat mile, that was great. And as we approached mile 4, I think it was mile 4 or 5, I can't remember, we were hitting some really good paces, and we started to approach the first decent incline of the race. Now, my words to Lee at that moment were, I'm going to chill on the hills, because I had a really good breakthrough half marathon last year at Hereford, and that was just because I was sensible with pacing with Lee, and I chilled out on the hills. I dropped back 10-15 seconds a mile on the hills. I kept running fast, but I wasn't pushing too hard, because I find if I push really hard up hills early in a race, I get to the top, I lose my form, I take a few steps and seconds to get back, and then I go again. And the more I do that, the more tired I get. and I thought I'd rather save my strength for the end of the race. So chilled on the hills, but it was at that point that Corey did not chill on the hills, and he went for it, and that's when he started to put a bit of distance. So we ran together for the first 3 or 4 miles, and then he kind of kicked on. And we kept him in sight for until about 8 or 9 miles, and then from about the 9th mile onwards, couldn't see him, which was fantastic. So mile 4 to 5 came, and we had this kind of rolling, it's very twisty turny through some housing estates, single path, not very friendly if you're trying to maintain a pace. This is a theme I found of the course. It's not there's not too many long sections, bar the first 3 miles and the last 3 miles, there's sections in there that are very twisty turny, lots of sharp lefts, sharp rights, through barriers, that sort of thing. So after we got through that, we had a nice casual downhill and a flat before we entered a park area. And it was at that point, it was about mile 6, I checked my watch, heard the bleep flash up. I was making a mental note to only check the watch every mile split. And I did that until the end when I was getting a bit more frantic with checking, but I did really well in the beginning. And we approached this park, and I said to Lee, okay, yeah, I said, how are you? He was like, yeah, I'm all right. And I'm like, yeah, so am I, we can do this. Let's go for it. Let's hold this pace. So we did. So we entered the park. And this was another section for about a mile that was very twisty turny. It really threw off my pace a little bit. Lots of sharp lefts, sharp rights, through some sort of like staggered gates. You'd have to run in and around these gates. It was a bit of a nightmare in that respect. But once you were through that, you were then down on a nice path that ran parallel to the river. And you ran on that for about a mile, mile and a half, came up to a road, just a very gradual incline back down the other side, and then back along the other side of the river. That section was really nice. Again, a few lumps and bumps, a few sharp hills, but nothing major, and we could get into our flow again. From there, that's when we lost Corey. That was coming up to mile 9. We came back out to a main road, and we had this section where we had what I would call the last major hill. There was kind of a junction that you kind of go up, hit a roundabout, and then you are cruising nicely downhill. And that was the point where I put my first effort in on the hill. Right, I thought to myself, right, I've saved the energy on the hills for these moments now in the last 4 miles of the race. Now is the time to push hard. So pushed hard up that hill, got to the top, and then that was the first sign for me that I was starting to tire. But I had a gel at mile 9, so that was great, and that was all I needed for the race, just a gel, and I had that over the whole mile. I just sipped it very gently, had little bits of it, didn't have any stomach issues. Had a minor stitch issue at mile 8. It came, and as quick as it came, it went. I went, oh gosh, something's coming, right, belly breathe, making sure my form's okay, and within 5-10 seconds it was gone. And that was the only thing I felt with the stitch, which I was just eternally grateful for. So anyway, back to mile 10, we hit the top of the roundabout, and at that point the course is pretty much downhill and flat. There's a few little bumps that you've got to go over. You've got to go up and over a couple of bridges, but on the whole, you're cruising and you can get into a gear, and that's where some really strong, fast miles came in at the end. We came back into town. Linda, Lee's wife, got some footage of us coming to the turnaround. That was about mile 10-ish, 10 or 11, I think. We were back down into town. Little zigzag, little S-bend, and then straight on down to the first bridge that we were going up and over. And it was only a footbridge, so it was a very, very mild incline. And then once we're on the other side of that, you then run along the river the other side. And at that point, it's about mile 10 and a half, 11. You can see, if you look over to your right, you can see the finish line on the other side of the thing. And Lee went, oh, look, there's a finish line. I'm like, right, we're not looking at that. We're not looking at that. We've got a bit more to go. So at that point, we knew we had 2 miles to go. And it was the most exhilarating feeling. We were both tired. We were both starting to get fatigued. But we were putting in an effort, and it was a great feeling to be able to put the hammer down on those times. It was a great feeling to be able to really maintain pace, hit some decent mile splits. In the last 2 miles were a 6:08 and a 6:02. And bearing in mind that last mile, or mile 12, we had to go up and over a bridge a little bit. So it was that for me was the most rewarding feeling of them all. That for me was the best feeling when I was up and over that bridge, knowing there was only a mile to go. It was like, my gosh, I've run the smartest, sensiblest race I've run in a long time. And yeah, we hit the final mile, and we just went for it, and we approached. We could hear the finish line, we could hear the announcers, And I said to Lee, round one last bend. I said, right mate, come on, let's put the hammer down, come on. And we finished in strong pace. I think it was about 5:30 pace for the last 0.2 miles. Our watches clocked it at 13.2 miles. Strava says 13.19. Watches came up at 13.2, but whatever. The course is officially measured, so that's brilliant. And we crossed the line in 1:20.38 because I stepped over the line 2 seconds before him, and I was 1:20.40. And overall, 23rd and 24th place out of 1,900 people. So I'm over the moon. I'm absolutely delighted with how it went. And if you guys remember, I said to you in the beginning of this year, some of my goals, guys, I want to run some really good average half marathon paces. Last year we ran a 1:24, a 1:23, a 1:23 and a 1:20. This year I wanted to keep that average way below 1:22, really, 1:21 and 1:20. And we've started with the first half marathon with a 1:20. Unbelievable. So that, guys, is my race recap. I hope you enjoy it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I really appreciate all of your support once again, and I'm really delighted that I could deliver a sensible, strong race kind of for myself as well as you, to show you how training is going, to show you some good practices, some good pacing. It's just so rewarding when this stuff pays off. So if you're still here now, if you haven't given it a thumbs up, I give you a massive kudos. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed it, please do give it a like, share it with friends, and of course do consider subscribing to the channel for weekly running content. And I will see you next time. Until then.